What if someone walked into a police station and calmly confessed to murders that had even happened yet? This isn't the opening of a movie. It's the beginning of a true mystery that baffled authorities and blurred the very line between prediction and reality. The story of Daniel Cross is one that challenges everything we think we know about crime, destiny, and the power of a single choice. It was a cold, ordinary day in 1997 when a man named Daniel Cross entered a precinct in Northern Europe. He didn't seem panicked or distressed. He walked with a quiet certainty, like someone about to finish a long overdue task. He approached the front desk and asked to speak with a detective. There was no urgency in his voice, just a calm, unwavering resolve. When he finally sat down in an interrogation room, the detectives expected a standard confession, maybe a cold case they could finally close. But what Daniel said next made no sense at all. He didn't confess to a past crime. He confessed to future ones. He calmly listed 3 names, along with precise dates and locations for their murders. The detectives listened, a mix of confusion and skepticism on their faces. They had never heard these names before. The locations he mentioned held no significance to any open investigations. He wasn't saying he was planning to kill these people. He insisted he had already done it. His tone was not of a man plotting a crime, but of a man recounting a memory. He spoke with the chilling clarity of a witness, except the events he was describing were still weeks away. It was a confession to crimes that, in the present moment, simply didn't exist. The detectives immediately ran the names through every database they had. They scoured missing persons reports, checked cold case files, and cross-referenced unsolved homicides from across the continent. The result was always the same: nothing. The victims Daniel Cross had named did not exist in any official record. There were no reports, no files, no grieving families. It was as if he had pulled these names from thin air. The logical conclusion was that this man was deeply disturbed. Perhaps suffering from a psychological break, or maybe he was just a desperate attention seeker spinning a dark, elaborate fantasy. They were ready to dismiss him, to send him for a psychological evaluation and close the file. But just as they were about to end the interview, Daniel added one final, chilling detail. He looked directly at the lead detective and said, "The first one happens next Tuesday." The certainty in his voice was unnerving. It wasn't a threat. It was a statement of fact. This single sentence shifted the entire dynamic of the case. While they still believed he was unstable, they couldn't ignore the specificity of his claim. The case was officially marked for psychological evaluation, but they couldn't just let him go. Daniel was placed under observation, caught in a strange limbo, not arrested, because no crime had been committed, but not released, because of the terrifying possibility that he knew something they didn't. He just sat there, waiting, and so did the police. 5 days later, the waiting ended. A call came in. A body had been discovered in an alleyway, exactly where Daniel had said it would be. The detectives rushed to the scene, a knot of dread tightening in their stomachs. As the victim's identity was confirmed, a wave of disbelief washed over them. The name, the age, the physical description all matched the first victim on Daniel's list. The cause of death was also identical to what he had described. Suddenly, the ramblings of a disturbed man had transformed into a horrifyingly accurate prophecy. The crime that didn't exist was now very, very real. The police had a confession, a victim, and a timeline, but the perpetrator was already in their custody when it happened. The investigation was thrown into chaos. How could Daniel have known? Was he part of a larger conspiracy? Did he have an accomplice carrying out his plans? They brought him back in for interrogation, but his story never changed. He remained calm, detached, almost serene. He simply stated that the second murder would happen as he described. 2 weeks later, it did. Another body, another name crossed off his list, another prediction fulfilled with terrifying precision. The third followed a month after that, each crime unfolding exactly as Daniel had foretold. The police were no longer dealing with a suspect. They were dealing with an oracle of death. Under intense and repeated interrogation, Daniel insisted on one thing. He wasn't predicting the crimes. He was remembering them. He claimed he was experiencing the future, not as a vague premonition, but as a series of vivid, inescapable memories. He remembered events that hadn't occurred yet with the same clarity that we remembered yesterday. This explanation, of course, was impossible. It defied logic, science, and every rule of police work. But the bodies kept proving him right. The detectives were trapped. They had the confessor, but the killer was a ghost, always one step ahead. When they pressed him, demanding to know who was actually committing these murders, Daniel's answer was always the same, delivered with that same unsettling calm. He would look at them and say, "That depends on whether you stop them." His words were a riddle wrapped in a threat. Was he taunting them? Was this some kind of twisted game? The police decided to call his bluff. For his fourth prediction, they took action. They identified the potential victim and the location from his confession. They set up round-the-clock surveillance, guarding the area for days, determined to prevent the murder and break the cycle. They were confident they had finally outsmarted him. They were wrong. The day of the predicted murder came and went. The location remained secure, and the person they were protecting was safe. For a moment, it seemed like they had won. But then, the news came. The victim had been killed anyway, at a different location, at a different time. But the method, the gruesome details of the crime, matched Daniel's original description perfectly. It was as if fate itself had corrected its course. Their intervention hadn't stopped the outcome. It had only changed the path to get there. Someone still died, just as Daniel had remembered. This event revealed a horrifying pattern. Every time the authorities tried to intervene, the future would simply shift to accommodate them. It was like a river finding a new path around a rock. The details might change the time, the place, but the ultimate outcome remained fixed. A life was always taken. Daniel finally explained the mechanism behind his visions. He told them he only remembered futures where he, Daniel Cross, survived. In every one of those futures, someone else died. His survival was inexplicably linked to the deaths of others. He wasn't seeing all possible futures, only the ones that guaranteed he would live to see the next day. And in every single one of them, someone else paid the price for his existence. Then, Daniel made his final confession. It was different from all the others. He described a future where no one died. There were no murders, no crimes, no disasters. It was a future of peace, a timeline where the cycle of death was finally broken. But this perfect future came with one crucial difference. In that version of reality, Daniel Kraus wasn't alive. To save everyone else, he had to be removed from the equation. He was the variable that always led to tragedy. Before the date of this final piece of future arrived, Daniel Cross vanished. He disappeared from the observation facility without a trace. No one saw him leave. There was no sign of a struggle, no evidence of an escape. He was simply gone. And from that moment on, the confessions stopped. The cycle was broken. No more predictions. No more deaths. His disappearance left behind a void of unanswered questions. Was he the killer, manipulating events from behind the scenes? Or was he a tragic figure, a living warning cursed to remember futures he was powerless to change? Was his final act a sacrifice, or the ultimate escape? Some stories don't have a neat ending. They don't offer closure or easy answers. They just stop leaving us to wonder about the pieces left behind. The story of Daniel Cross is one of them. It waits in the shadows of our understanding, a chilling reminder that sometimes the line between crime and destiny is terrifyingly thin. If you want to explore more mysteries that challenge the limits of what we know, be sure to subscribe to Thanks for watching.